Hello, welcome back to Stretford Paddock for the second time today. A little bit of news for you. I say a little bit of news, quite a big bit of news actually. It's the news that coming out of UEFA's conference / meeting / I don't know what it is at this point, sort of crisis talks. Euro 2020 has been delayed until 2021. We'll get the full details now. This is coming from Sky Sports. Like I said, this is from UEFA. It was released initially by the Norwegian FA, which, since when do they release news? I'm not quite sure. Maybe they weren't supposed to leak it as quickly as they did. This is coming from Sky Sports then. They're saying UEFA postpones flagship tournament scheduled to begin on June the 12th to help domestic competitions currently on hold due to the COVID-19 emergency. UEFA has postponed Euro 2020 until the summer of 2021 to allow European leagues more time to complete their seasons amid the coronavirus pandemic. The news was first confirmed, like I said, by the Norwegian FA on social media, with UEFA later proposing the competition will be played between June the 11th and July the 11th, 2021. The playoffs for Euro 2020, which will include the Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland, have also been postponed. So they were set to be played in the months leading up to Euro 2020, again this summer, which obviously is not happening now. That will be played at a later date. The semi-finals were originally set to take place on March the 26th, with finals on March the 31st. Those fixtures have now been postponed until June. This is UEFA's statement, and they said UEFA today announced the postponement of its flagship national team competition Euro 2020, due to be played in June and July this year. The health of all those involved in the game is a priority, as well as to avoid placing any unnecessary pressure on national public services involved in staging matches. The move will help all domestic competitions currently on hold due to the COVID-19 emergency be completed. So yeah, this is, huge news really, isn't it? Obviously United have got tons of players wanting to play at this tournament. Marcus Rashford was a player that was fighting his fitness to come back for the tournament. But it looks as though we won't have to worry about that now. In terms of United, also Paul Pogba is another one that was looking to prove his fitness leading up to this tournament, but it won't be the case. Someone says this is good because Rashford and Pogba can recover properly. Yeah, exactly. No holidays for you then, Ross. Unfortunately not at least to go watch the football anyway. What about the Euro 2020 women's? They were speaking on Sky Sports before. I believe that starts on the 7th of July, and this tournament would end on the 11th. So there would be a little bit of crossover, but I think as things stand, they are both supposed to take place. Like I said, with that little bit of crossover, but hopefully, other than that, there isn't too much disruption to the other sort of big football and sporting calendars of next year. Euro men's and women's will clash, yes, but only by 4 days. So the start of the women's will overlap the end of the men's, but it's basically going to be continuous football for 2 months, essentially. What would be your biggest disappointment of any of the Man United squad of the season if the season finished now? I'd be disappointed for Marcus Rashford that he didn't get 20 goals, because I think that's even though he's got 19 and it's only one difference, I think it's a sort of a milestone figure when you start looking at how good a player is and what a player's done with their career. The amount of times they hit 20 goals is one of the things you look at, and I think he was well on course for probably 25, 30 might have been a push, but 25 or so goals, and for him to end on less than that would be disappointing. Let me know what you think to this postponement then. Do you think it was inevitable? Do you think they should have tried to play through? I think, especially with the tournament being across 12 countries, I think it was always going to be impossible to play this. But what it has meant, and as UEFA have reiterated twice there in their statements, it means that the current season, the current domestic competitions are still looking to be played. So there's been talk about the Premier League being cancelled or scrapped, or winners having to be decided from points totals, and relegation and promotions having to be decided without another game being played. But it does seem as though the priority is for those matches to be played. So there's another thing for United to think about, whether it's behind closed doors or not. And we don't have an update on that in terms of timescale, but it does seem as though the intention of the league, the intention of UEFA, is for all domestic competitions to be completed in full as things stand. So there's a chance that we do see football return this summer for the conclusion of the Premier League. It looks as though that probably would have to be behind closed doors again. There's been talk of another sort of 12 to 18 weeks before we even hit the peak of the sort of coronavirus pandemic. So it's going to get worse before it gets better, I'm afraid. But it's hard to know where exactly we'll be with lockdowns and recommendations for people to stay at home and openings, and we're not sure exactly where society will be by the summer. So that's going to be an interesting one to see. Does Old Trafford have doors? When I was there was turnstiles. What? It has turnstiles. More of a chance of the season being finished now, yeah. Do you think would you rather have had the season cancelled and the Euros be played, or would you rather had the Euros postponed and then we see the season finish behind closed doors, as it seems as though we are doing at the moment? When do the United Awards take place? I'm not sure. I don't know exactly how that works now with everything that's going on, because that's usually in the summer. But if we're still playing games, then I'm sure that'll have to be postponed until near the start of the next season. Will the World Cup still be in 2022? Yes. As things stand, the World Cup hasn't been affected by this. So it'll be Euro 2021, World Cup 2022. Kind of fun actually when you think about it like that, isn't it? You said the games would have to be played behind closed doors. We don't know if the games will have to be played behind closed doors. Okay, you mean the doors of Old Trafford. These are sort of metaphorical closed doors of the mind, rather than literal doors. But there are doors in front of the turnstiles, so I'm pretty sure you can close those doors. Mason Greenwood, England 11, Euro 2022. Yeah, let's think about it from that perspective for a minute. Like I said, how will this affect United? The likes of Mason Greenwood will be a year further in his development. Aaron Wan-Bissaka is someone who has improved his stock in his first season at United, but he's currently not first choice for England. Marcus Rashford, again, will have time to come back and recover fully from his injury. We will get, we'll see him a whole another year of his development on. Even the likes of, James Garner and the people like that may well have a chance now to make a late push for this squad. Obviously, he's a young lad, and we'll have to see. But Mason Greenwood, again, I'm not sure if I mentioned him, but he would be a perfect person that could maybe come into this squad. And Luke Shaw, even, someone who's been in and out of the squad in the past, but seems to have had an upturn in form that was sort of coming slightly too late for these Euros. But if he is part of a successful United side next season, who knows where this could leave England's squad, England's chances. It's a young squad, and it may well help. Obviously not all the fans in the comments are from England, but looking at it from a United perspective, most of our players who will be playing in that tournament are English. Obviously there's Paul Pogba, there's David De Gea, who we'll have to see where his place is, both at United and for Spain in a year's time. There's a lot that can change in the meantime. So we're looking at a very different tournament to the one we're seeing, or to the one we would have seen now. Harry Kane is another player who likely will be back, or hopefully will have overcome his injuries by then. Does your double punch make you immune? Absolutely not. I wish it did. Euro 2021 and then World Cup 2022. Amazing 2 years. Bad for transfer windows. The transfer market's still going to be there. There's going to be a lot of talks to be concluded after the Euros, after the World Cup. My only concern is we're going to have Euro and then World Cup, and there was another tournament that was also postponed as well, the Confederations Cup, I believe. Have we got that? We haven't got news of that at the moment. But there's another tournament that has been postponed. Let me just check that. The Asian Confederation Cup has been postponed as well. So that's another one that will likely be coming back as well. So there's a lot. And then we're yet to see as well how this is going to affect qualification for the World Cup, because most of that would have been done via the Nations League and via qualification rounds that should have been taking place starting from basically the start of next season. So it's going to be very interesting. Will we see the teams play qualification matches for the World Cup before the Euros have even taken place? That is like I said, unless those timelines are going to change and things are going to be squashed and put together in different ways, as things stand, I believe some of the World Cup qualifications will be taking place before the European Cup, the European Championships is held. So that's going to be weird. How does that work? I'm not entirely sure. Copa America is another one. There's going to be a lot of... I mean, this is going to disrupt a lot of things, isn't it? Joel Morris saying, will the African Cup of Nations be affected? I'm not sure. Let me just have a look at that. Current news on the African Cup of Nations. They haven't cancelled it as of yet. They've suspended some of the qualifiers, but I don't think the Nations has been cancelled as of yet. So there's still a lot more news. There's a lot more decisions to be made. Club World Cup. Who cares about the Club World Cup, really? Sean Dyche won the Manager of the Month for February. Yes, he did. Sean Dyche and Bruno Fernandes being the two standout players and managers in the tournament for the month. Yeah, it's going to be it's going to be a very strange. It's going to be a strange year, or 2 years probably. Are you okay with not having answers? There are no answers because we've never seen this situation before. I'm okay with no answers. We need to give ourselves a mental break from the worry. Yeah, I think coming to terms with the fact that for at least 12 months now, we're going to be, or at least 12 months in the future, we are going to be out of the loop and none the wiser and no answers to a lot of questions we want answers to. Coming to terms with that is probably going to be a good part of this whole process, really. I think it's a difficult time. There's loads of strange things happening that we've never seen before, that even the people who usually have the answers, like UEFA, didn't have this answer until this afternoon. So it wasn't just us. It wasn't like the information was being withheld from us. This morning, as things stood, no one knew what the answer was. And you expect people, the government or governing bodies and that kind of thing, to have answers immediately pre-planned and laid out and set up without any sort of agency needing to take place on those decisions, like they're almost automatic. But really, these things are being thought of and sorted on the fly. And like I said, yeah, we're going to have to get used to that. So it's all very up in the air. That's why we're trying to do as many live videos as possible, because this news is literally being invented, discovered and released all in matters of moments. So it's going to be a very exciting and unusual and unique time to come. My player of the season is Fred. What's yours, Joe? As things stand, I would give it to Fred as well. I was always I used to knock him as well at the start of the season. I thought he was sort of the best of a bad bunch in that midfield, and that his resurgence had been overplayed just because of how bad he was before. I felt he didn't really stand out in the big games a lot of the times, and that he just kind of didn't make mistakes. But I think in recent weeks, the last sort of three or 4 months over Christmas and up till now, I think he's really stood out and has been genuinely excellent, as opposed to just not that bad. So yeah, I would go with Fred. Obviously, it would be Marcus Rashford, but his injury is there's such a recency bias to Player of the Year, and Marcus maybe still deserves it, even because he's only been injured for sort of 6 weeks, hasn't he? So it just happens to coincide with United's best run of form in 18 months has been in those 6 weeks. So yeah, I would probably give it Fred. The Corona break is actually a good thing for United, since it will allow us to finish the season with Rashford and Pogba. I don't think it's a good thing for anyone, but I know what you mean in terms of, if you look at it from just a purely squad perspective, we should have a full-strength squad when games resume. But if you're looking at it from an advantage perspective, so will Tottenham, so will Chelsea, who've had a lot of injuries, so will City, who've had key injuries to players. Liverpool never get any injuries, so it'll be fine for them. But there's a lot of teams in and around the spots United are challenging for that will also have presumably close or fully strength squads by the time football resumes. So it's good for us, but it's good for everyone on just purely that sort of singular injury level. 1 more week till the return of the Premier League. Absolutely no chance, mate. I don't think there's anywhere near any chance at all that we will see the Premier League resume on the weekend of the 4th of April. I think that was a preliminary or sort of an initial postponement date, which is basically when things would be checked and reassessed, rather than saying it's going to be June. Because what could have happened at the time when it was postponed, we weren't quite sure of the severity of the disease and how it would be treated by the government, and how we would have to, quarantine and shut things down, and we still don't fully know. But things have got much more severe since that 4th of April date was announced. We haven't got less severe. So I think the odds of that being the date is slim to zero. I would say pretty much, I have confidence in saying there is no chance we will see football in any capacity on the 4th of April. The Copa America has also been postponed to next year. Yeah, there's been no word on the Olympics, has there yet? As far as we're aware, no word on the Olympics, but that's another one that is expected to be postponed. It is slightly later in the year. I think it's in August. So there's a bit of a chance, but again, I would be very confident in saying that won't take place at the dates that it's currently supposed to. Maybe late May isn't coming back in April. I don't know what that means. Maybe late Maybe isn't coming back in April, you mean? Yeah, I don't think it's going to be coming back in April. Any news on whether the team is still training? The team has stopped training indefinitely for now. I think the last word was that it was going to be a 3-day break and it would be reassessed again after that. All of the players have got home fitness regimes to be getting on with. But yeah, I think it's, again, we'll start with a 3-day break from Carrington. No one is going into the training ground and we'll take it from there. Okay, Japan have said they expect to have complete Olympics still today, as in they have the complete Olympics will take place, or they expect to have completed the Olympics. I don't know, I haven't seen that quote. So apparently they are still looking to complete the Olympics, but I think that's going to be very difficult. The Olympic boxing qualifiers have been postponed. Yeah, this is the thing, isn't it? It's not just turn up on the Olympics and go. There's everything that has to be put in place. There's crowds and there's teams and there's training that has to all take place in centres and arenas and pools and velodromes around the country and around the world that are going to be shut and closed and quarantined and this sort of thing. So it's going to be very difficult. It's not just a case of is the world in a correct place on the day the Olympics is meant to start. It's how do things line up as we lead up to the Olympics. As we see news here that Tokyo Olympics boss has tested positive for coronavirus. Who is it? The deputy chief of Japan's Olympic Committee has tested positive. So this is sort of the Arteta of the Olympics world, I think. Yeah, again, I'd be very surprised if that goes ahead as things are. Can you believe things like darts and golf will have events taking place in around autumn? It's all very... The behind closed doors element of everything is kind of a get out of jail free card, isn't it? I know there's still plenty of people around and we haven't been able to do that so far, but that's the one potential kind of this could work, where we just two blokes playing darts with a judge or an umpire in front of them. That could happen, but I can't imagine full arenas around the country full of people watching darts being played in anytime soon. Is your mic plugged in? I see no cable. Well, what's happened is we've got terrible mic problems at the moment, so I'm using a different mic, this one. But this is it's part of the look of the show, isn't it? So we keep this mic here. Very much the Conan O'Brien of YouTube football fan channels. I've been talking into it like it's the real mic as well, just out of habit. WrestleMania is still happening. Yeah, in a shed in Wickham. It's in someone's back garden now. That don't count. We used to do WrestleMania at my mate's house, just jumping on the sofas. That's literally all it's going to be. There's no one going to be there, and it's in like some little centre somewhere. Doesn't count as still happening. Could you see a championship-style playoff for the Champions League between third and sixth? That would be serious entertainment. Why would it just be between third and sixth, though? Why not second? Why not the top six or between second and sixth? I don't know. It'd be hilarious. Imagine, right, if what they did was they decided for the Premier League we're just doing a playoff top six, like they do in America or something, and Liverpool had to fight in a playoff with all of us. Oh, that would be so funny if they didn't win it because they lost the playoffs. There could be a playoff, but I doubt it. I'll fight you in your back garden. All right, mate, Marty Chob, bring it on. It has to be WWE rules, though, when we decide who wins beforehand. When is the footy back? No idea. No one knows, mate. Oh, yeah, the playoff for the Premier League. Imagine how good that would be. Behind closed doors, playoffs, five-a-side. We were talking about that, five-a-side. Who would win a Premier League top 16 playoff five-a-side tournament to decide? Because you've got to have... we have to limit the amount of people who are together. So if this was a five-a-side tournament, who would win? Which team? I think United would be pretty good. Let's go over the news again then before we go. This is the news, of course, that Euro 2020 is to be postponed until the summer of 2021. It's like a bad Bryan Adams song, that, isn't it? UEFA has postponed Euro 2020 until the summer of 2021 to allow European leagues more time to complete their seasons amid the coronavirus pandemic. This again was broken by the Norwegian FA today on social media after a meeting with UEFA and their delegates and correspondents around the world. UEFA has said that UEFA today announced the postponement of its flagship national team competition, UEFA 2020, due to be played in June and July this year. The health of all those involved in the game is the priority, as well as to avoid placing any unnecessary pressure on national public services involved in staging matches. The move will help all domestic competitions currently to hold the COVID-19 emergency to be completed. So there's your news. Euro 2020 will be on next year, and again, like it says in that quote there, I read the full quote, because it places emphasis on the domestic titles and domestic trophies being handed out and being decided this summer. So as far as things stand in terms of Manchester United news, we are told to expect a complete finish to the domestic calendar, be that behind closed doors or not. Hopefully we will see Manchester United play again this summer. Right, thank you very much for joining me. We're going to be back tomorrow for all sorts of fun things, don't you worry about that. We're going to have the news in the morning. I'm sure there'll be loads of breaking news coming out, as there is all the time, because it's just ridiculous at the moment. We're also going to be having a podcast as well, so make sure you tune in for that. We'll see you next time.